So Maarten from Meeting Design Institute is joining me, and he's been leading whole groups through the process of some of the design thinking. So can you tell us a little bit about what is the Meeting Design Institute?
So the Meeting Design Institute is a member-based organization, and we have companies that provide service in meeting design. So we define meeting design as the stuff that happens inside the meeting and designing that so it becomes more productive and better.
Fantastic. And so can anyone be a member? Is it something where you're seeking people out, or is it just...
Anyone can be a member, so it's really a community of people, and we ask for help from our members to provide education and other helpful things for meeting professionals, meeting planners mainly.
Fantastic. And so today you're going to be sharing a little bit about the meeting architecture process, because I know we were having a conversation yesterday in the hallway where you said that not many people know about it. That a lot of folks use like the principles of design thinking, but from an actual process, you know, that's why so many struggle with what's my goal, what's my strategy, and this is supposed to help provide a little bit more of a framework, right?
Yeah, it's what we have here is a workbook which provides a number of steps that make it a little more easy for meeting professionals to identify objectives and design the meeting based on those objectives, and then measure the outcome based on the initial goals that they've set.
So walk us through, how would somebody start to use, when we call it, we have to meeting architecture process. So it's a really long word, so we're going to call it MAP for short.
Yeah.
It's late.
It's about making a map towards the goals of your conference actually as well. It's like a roadmap. So you start with step one, and it's bringing the right people together in a group of 5 or 6 that would talk about objectives. And so identify your participants is number one, because in many conferences there's categories of participants. You at least have, for example, in some cases, buyers and suppliers, and they obviously have different objectives. So then you look at what are the objectives, and we have some kind of a template for that. We have a number of ideas and structures and streams and segments that you can look at. So it goes like step by step. For example, you could then say, let's look at the learning objectives for our buyers, for example, or the networking objectives for our buyers, or the motivational needs for our buyers. So these are the 3 categories: learning, networking, and motivation at meetings. And then, you know, that's how we identify the probably long list of objectives. Because if you work with a group of 6, you look at one category of participants in these 3 areas, you probably end up with 3 little lists of 5 or 7 categories. And that's step number 1.
Right. And then what are steps? Are there, how many steps are there? I think that's the better question.
Yeah, you could say there's 7 steps in total. But there's actually a number of bigger groups. You know, identifying objectives is one, and then designing the meeting based on those objectives is actually the step or the bigger group number 2. So we're still identifying the objectives, you know, that we're still in that is, I think, the most important thing that needs to be done. And it's the biggest innovation as well in meeting design, because we used to jump into how are we going to do this without thinking about what are we trying to accomplish. So finding a little bit of structure in this book, you'll find also some ideas on how to do this, and even templates, you know, just templates that you can copy and just use for as many meetings as you want. And it's going to help you to think in, you know, segments and work with people around the table to come up with a good list of objectives. But the next step then would be to identify which ones are more important.
Right.
Obviously, you can't go design a meeting to support 7 different objectives. So you have to, you know, find the most important ones, put those on the top, and then maybe work on those top 3 objectives. Because you can't change your entire event based on this exercise. You can only go step by step. So ranking them and then picking your top 2 or 3 objectives is another step.
And so we work with a lot of event planners, and so we always like to say, what's the one practical way, as you're getting started with something like this, outside of the notebook, of course, what's the one way to really get started with meeting design?
I think the biggest tip I could give would be to separate objective identification of finding your objectives and keep that separate from the design, because you should not start designing if you don't. Yeah, so you have to spend some good time on that, and it's the most, let's say, it's the least exciting part of it's really deep intellectual work to find objectives for meeting for meeting participants, and it's not so sexy as can we have this band, or should we use that technology, or can we build a stage like this, or should we have tables like that. People are really easy in finding ideas for the design, but you should park those ideas while you're talking about objectives. So keep those separate as much as possible.
I love that. And then for resources, we always ask, what are resources that you're using right now to kind of organize your life, make you a better event professional? And then for this resource in particular, where can people go to find things like that?
Well, people can just buy this on Amazon. So it's a book that is printed on demand, and you just buy it on Amazon. And if you have the book, you could actually do this yourself. You could also get trained in this. We provide help and training, and people can ask us, for help or if they have any questions. But you could actually do this on your own. Just buy the book and read it, and then go, do the steps one by one. So it's quite an easy, an easy process, I shouldn't say. It can be. It can take some time, It's never easy, really to sit down and think long and hard about the objectives for, a group of participants.
But incredibly rewarding, because once you're in and you have those objectives, right? I mean, you were talking about binding the band, doing all this stuff, but in my mind, it'll just be a very shallow event if we aren't really thinking about the purpose why we're bringing the people together. And so many times in face-to-face meetings, we do it over and over again because it's what we've always done, and we look for the cool, flashy pieces. And so these elements really do kind of pull us forward and push us forward to have those difficult conversations and saying, are we really giving the participants what they need to come back and be fulfilled when they come and we collaborate together, when we accomplish what we want to? Because sometimes we're not even sure what we're trying to accomplish. Yeah,
that's true, and I think it creates great value by doing this. And it also doesn't mean that you have to cancel the band and do like a boring production at all. You just keep doing those things, but you build on that energy that you create by doing that, and you build on it by really looking at what do these people need to learn, and then what are they going to do with that after the conference. What action do we expect from them?
Absolutely.
And then what is the impact that we want from that action? So all that is like, start thinking about return on investment and the impact you want on the market, and how can we make people do something after the conference. So what do they need to learn to make sure that that all that happens?
Fantastic. Well, what questions should I have asked about the MAP process that I haven't yet?
Measurement.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
So I think at the beginning, when you start identifying your objectives, you also design the questions. So if you want people to learn something, or if you want people to have new connections, you design the questions. So you make sure you already have the question that asks participants about how many new people have you met, and how many new people have you met that you are sure you will be in contact with after this conference? That kind of questions are measuring the objectives that we set at the beginning.
All right. Well, Maarten, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for everyone at home that's watching us and on demand. And we'll be back very soon with more great content.